Kia ora, I'm Chelsea Daniels, and this is The Front Page, a daily podcast presented by the New Zealand Herald. Kiwis will finally get to experience the labyrinth that is an Ikea store from December 4th. The new Sylvia Park site in Auckland is one of the company's largest in the Southern Hemisphere, about the size of 3 rugby fields. There'll be thousands of products available online and in store, and yes, they will be serving up their famous Swedish meatballs in a 426-seat cafeteria. So why do we get so excited about international brands setting up on our shores? And is there enough appetite for Ikea and their meatballs to succeed where others haven't? Today on The Front Page, Quantum Jump CEO and marketing expert Ben Goodale is with us to explain the hype around one of the world's leading retailers. First off, Ben, what is the significance of Ikea finally coming to New Zealand?
I think there's a number of factors here. It is a major retail brand globally, and one of Sweden's great exports. I think to a certain extent, the sheer fact that so many Kiwis already have IKEA products in their homes, which they've maybe brought back from overseas or people have given to them or they've ordered in. And so it's a brand that almost feels like it's been here for a while anyway, but actually planting itself. And it's very grounding for an international brand like that to arrive in New Zealand, not unlike Costco a couple of years ago. I think we go, wow, we're finally there as a nation. We've got an Ikea, we've got a Costco, we've got an H&M, Sephora, Victoria's Secret out at the airport, brands which are, living in a country and far-flung, furthest away part of the world. In fact, I read today that the IKEA store in Auckland will be the furthest away from Sweden store that they have. Wow. It kind of means something when these brands turn up and they've got to us.
In terms of Ikea, what makes it like, I suppose, the international juggernaut that it is?
Firstly, the product is amazing. It's they're innovative, they're sustainable, or as sustainable as you can be within a category like that, and they're pushing to be more sustainable forever. Their focus on design is fundamental to their success. I remember as probably not long after I left school, going to the opening of the first IKEA in London and queuing up that day to get in. And I didn't even really know what IKEA was, something to do on a Sunday. But being bowled over by the design, that simple Swedish aesthetic. It really, it's not just furniture. Albeit I also have cursed, and I once foolishly bought a futon from IKEA. And I'm sure if anyone watching this imagines, flat pack assembling a futon in a time where I did not own a power drill, so I had to hand screw in every last screw. I had blisters, and I was not a happy person. But the futon was sensational.
Well, that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? The flat pack. I say fun in quotation marks because I personally don't think it's fun. But in terms of, you mentioned London in the when would that have been?
That was 1988.
Yeah, was it the same kind of huge sensation it was even then than it is now? Because in the 80s you didn't have social media or the internet and things like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was reflecting on that the other day. I suppose the answer for it is almost I don't know. I remember it. I don't know why I was there. I don't know how I knew it was going on. Maybe there was an advert in the Evening Standard. It wasn't far from my flat, but it felt big. I remember going to work the next day and whatever, people were talking about it. And so I guess it must have been on the news. It must have been on the radio. Maybe there was a piece of it in the Standard in the morning when people are getting on the tube with their newspaper. But you're right. I think it's funny now, having lived now with social media for 10, 15 years, we almost have forgotten how did these things get shared and amplified and so on before all that happened. But I guess we just found other ways. I mean, apart from anything else, people talk to each other about it.
Do you think IKEA will have to adapt to the Kiwi market, or is IKEA just IKEA?
Well, I think initially, I mean, they are just IKEA, their product range. They're not going to develop products just for this market, and nor, I'm not quite sure what products we would uniquely need. I mean, we're not different to the rest of the world. However, they have done a lot of groundwork, which they've talked about in some of their media relations around going into Kiwi homes and understanding how Kiwis use products, what they need. I think probably understanding things like how Kiwis use their garages, as well as their outdoors and so on. So I think probably it will be more they'll show up with the ranging, because they'll have a vast array of ranges, but not everything will be as appropriate in Auckland as it might be in Tokyo or New York or whatever. So I think we'll get a profile which they'll have deemed appropriate based on those insights.
What do you make of the main freight partnership? Is that something quite unique? For those who don't know, they're going to be doing this main freight to home service, and the offer will take heavier items into people's homes if that was their preferred option. That's quite revolutionary, because I always fret when I buy something or a piece of furniture thinking, am I going to fit it into my car, or am I going to be able to carry this up my drive? So that's quite a unique, having a main freight, a couple of them actually lug it into your house is quite special, I think.
Yeah, well, they are operating distribution in some other markets, especially where they don't have those stores. I mean, it's certainly a very smart, strong play for this market. Suddenly, they've only got one store, but it's almost like, have they got 29 stores? And we're also living in, an evolved age of e-commerce. People's happiness with buying online ever since COVID was a bit of a game changer for online buying in New Zealand, New Zealand's always been a little bit behind the rest of the Western world in terms of uptake on e-commerce. But it kind of makes sense for IKEA, especially once people have some familiarity with products. If you're living down country and your friend shows you their futon, which they're really delighted with, and you go, well, I'll have one of those. You can just order one and you can pick it up from your main freight delivery. So or have it delivered into the house. So I think it's going to allow their distribution to be really powerful. And for other brands that are in that, especially that heavier furniture offering, it's going to put some pressure on them.
Your opening is also going to allow many New Zealanders to once again experience the beloved Swedish meatballs that they remember from visiting IKEA stores overseas. I think all of us who have lived overseas, and I did so for some time, are very familiar where you put an itinerary together for your Kiwi friends and family coming to visit you, and they say, that's very lovely, but can we go to IKEA first and foremost? And whether it's in Chicago or London, where I was for some time, they say, that looks great, but let's get to the IKEA quickly, please.
The only reason I can think of for IKEA that would perhaps not make it work so well here is that because there's been an absence in the market of IKEA for so long, the likes of Kmart and the Warehouse have their own flat pack furniture. Obviously not to the scale of as IKEA, but people have gotten, cupboards and bookshelves and desks and things like that already. Do you think that IKEA's products will hit as hard as it would have without those competitors? Or do you think Kmart and the Warehouse and the like should just give up now?
Oh, no. I mean, I think there's always, first of all, the people like to have choice, and you're going to have loyal shoppers at Kmart, loyal shoppers at the Warehouse. IKEA is going to come in, and it won't be for everyone. And I think in a way, probably, it'd be interesting if those retailers have been doing research on what might happen once IKEA are in market, and how does it maybe reshape their ranging. They may go down a price pointing strategy, or if there's resistance to flat pack, do they have less maybe not quite so flat pack, more ready to go. Also, I mean, fundamentally, it's the business they're in. I mean, I think provided they can see an appropriate ROI, they'll they'll stick at it. But they probably need to. It may make them think about the ranging and what because they may find they get really disrupted in some areas, but maybe less so in others.
Can you share some examples of perhaps international brands that we've gotten quite excited about and that have actually thrived in New Zealand? Of course, I'm thinking initially, straight off the bat, Costco, for example. That was huge. When I went to Costco on the second weekend that it was open, and I regret it. It was terrifying.
Yeah, well, actually, I went the opening day. You can tell I'm a bit of an opening day junkie, and I went round, and it was quite the thing. I mean, the queues, the crowds, and
The traffic.
the traffic was. I deliberately parked a little way away, and I walked in. I decided I didn't want to get stuck in the car park. I think part of the big thing was with the sheer buzz, the smiles on people's faces, the queues for the $1 hot dogs. And I think just Costco, like IKEA, it's a scale thing. It's big, and very much a retail cathedral. So yeah, I mean, certainly in Costco's it hasn't got quieter. Like the queues, especially at weekends, are quite incredible. Although they do pretty well at pumping people through. But yeah, anytime you want to go there, you're going to see it's going to be pretty busy, and the queue for their hot roast chickens and things never seems to diminish. They just get wiped out. So, I mean, yeah, they've done well. I mean, some others have found it a little bit harder. I think, Sephora has found it a little bit harder. Obviously, the Topshop brand came into New Zealand, although it wasn't directly owned by Topshop itself, so it was through a local partnership. So it didn't have the same financial dynamics that it would be if it had been the actual brand owner coming in terms of margin. So I think they found it a bit tougher because they opened up at a magnificent site on Queen Street, and it was a really lovely store, and foot traffic to it looked pretty good. But I think just getting those margin aspects of your overheads too high, it's just very hard in retail. And, we've had other brands here. I mean, Laura Ashley, Body Shop and so on. It's kind of come and gone, but they've also been having challenges. Some retail brands go through challenges globally anyway, just as trends change. I mean, the retail chain, it's not quite on the same level as IKEA, but the ones who are really killing it over here have come in as Chemist Warehouse. And, they've really tapped into something that, we didn't really have that large scale, low cost chemist pharmacy offering, and all those brands before. And, I just saw, yesterday there's a new one going up just down the road, and you go, wow, they're just going gangbusters.
Yeah, they're popping up everywhere, aren't they? I mean, if you could wave a magic wand and have an overseas retailer come here tomorrow, or really look at New Zealand as a really good option, what would it be? I know what my couple are. So I've been advocating for Audi to come here for a long time. They've just grown roots in Australia. And then another one that I was thinking of the other day would we like a Walmart or something here?
Well, in a way, the warehouses are Walmart. So I think, who knows? Maybe Walmart could buy the warehouse, and then that would be interesting. An Audi, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. This may be straying into a whole other podcast conversation. Would be, the whole supermarket thing, and
oh yeah.
Aldi, to come in, it's just we're such a, one of your other questions before is, we are a very small market which is why IKEA have taken their time to come here. They've been richer solutions before, or richer market options to go into. So it's when people do come here, it's because they've worked out, or they think they've worked out how to make money. I mean, brands for me, selfishly, I'm quite passionate about some overseas apparel brands. So there's one particular favourite of mine is an Italian brand called Boggi. and it's a menswear brand. So basically you can buy it online. They ship out of Australia, but if you actually want to go to a store, you usually have to be in Italy. The chances of them coming to New Zealand are rather slim. But then maybe that can be said for some other things. In the old days, I would have said I would have loved to have had a Virgin megastore here, because that was a place I spent an awful lot of time in the 80s and 90s. But as music and entertainment shopping has changed.
When we used to have records and CDs.
When we used to have records and CDs, and Virgin Megastore was like the ultimate place. That and Tower Records were the ultimate places, but they don't really exist in the same way now. So it's not quite the same call.
What would convince someone like another one over in Adelaide's just got a couple of TK Maxxes and a Uniqlo, and then there's another Japanese brand that we were talking about before. I think it's Muji. What would make one of those brands actually look at New Zealand? What do we have to do?
Well, it may partly be seeing some of these other international operators succeeding. So I mean, Costco, I don't know whether IKEA have been coming for years. And I don't know whether Costco actually getting in and breaking ground and building has helped give IKEA similar confidence to come into market. For them, it's probably seeing what is the economic situation, what is working or thriving in New Zealand, and then identifying market gaps, what isn't being served. I think that's what, come back to Chemist Warehouse, why they've done well is there was nothing like it in market. And, the established retailers of day-to-day pharmacy goods were doing it in a much more traditional way. So they've come in, discounted, but also the ranging is very, very different. Another brand that would be really interesting over here is Primark, which is, again, fast fashion, super cheap. It's you can get kitted out for so little, and their stores are massive over in particularly the UK, but multi-floor, pretty much pick up whatever you want. I would have thought a Primark would kill over here. Actually, it would if they would. But come back to your point, why would they come here? They would just have to establish that there was a market gap that wasn't being served well by the existing players.
Thanks for joining us, Ben.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of The Front Page. You can read more about today's stories and extensive news coverage at nzherald.co.nz. The Front Page is produced by Jane Yee and Richard Martin, who is also our editor. I'm Chelsea Daniels. Subscribe to The Front Page on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, and tune in on Monday for another look behind the headlines.